welcome to the first season of the Is the Planet Doomed podcast. This is a project produced by the students of a course with the same name in the Department of Geography at Colgate University. By unpacking some of the world's most pressing and complex problems, the episodes in this podcast help answer the question, well, are we doomed? In this episode, Teddy Campbell reveals how an oil palm boom is driving the mass deforestation of Borneo.
The beauty of the world's third largest island is undeniable, but Borneo's role as a sanctuary for the wonders of the natural world is in danger. Although much of the island's terrain is supposedly protected under conservation laws, Indonesian authorities seek to open up millions of hectares for palm oil cultivation.
That was Chris Klein of Al Jazeera back in 2007. Since then, palm oil production on Borneo has continued to increase. When farmers or corporations want to plant more oil palms, they cut down the rainforest. This deforestation is the heart of the problem. But before we get more into the issue, let's meet our protagonists. What is palm oil? Well, for starters, there's a pretty high chance you've already used or eaten a palm oil product today. It's in everything from Colgate toothpaste to Jif peanut butter. Palm oil is grown all over the world, but most comes from Malaysia and Indonesia. It's no coincidence that these are the two countries that control the vast majority of Borneo. This huge Southeast Asian island is covered in valuable rainforest. The forest is home to a variety of unique species. These species are losing their habitats to palm oil plantations. It's also a massive global carbon sink. The trees pull in a huge amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which helps offset some of the greenhouse gases we constantly emit. But the rainforest is being chopped down at an alarming rate. Does that mean palm oil is the enemy here? Should we all just try to not use palm oil products? Well, it's not that simple. Palm oil is used in countless products, and it's also a source of biofuel. Biofuel is a growing renewable resource. It releases less greenhouse gases into the atmosphere than fossil fuels. The world needs to lessen its fossil fuel usage in order to combat climate change. Biofuel will be an attractive alternative in the future. Chopping down the rainforest is unsustainable, but palm oil isn't evil. Palm oil is a primary source of income for many rural farmers. Thanks to palm oil, they have the income to feed their families. The problem is when the rainforest is chopped down to make room for palm oil. So who's cutting down the rainforest? Well, pretty much everyone. Palm oil plantations are owned by large corporations and small independent landholders alike. It's a huge part of the economy for both Indonesia and Malaysia. For many people living in Borneo, the palm oil industry is their best chance to support themselves. But the industry has problems. First off, small landholders often get exploited by powerful corporations. Let's hear from Supri Suyadi, a palm oil plantation owner in Sumatra, a neighboring island of Borneo.
We have a memorandum of understanding with the company. They promised that after 5 years of development, they will return our lands to us. But they are still here and are not giving us our share of the profits. We also found out they have also taken some of our lands illegally.
This type of contract is fairly common in Borneo. Groups of farmers sign contracts with palm oil companies. The companies provide poor farmers with needed capital and knowledge. In return, they work the land together and the profits are shared. Contracts have been proven to help villages accumulate wealth. In a perfect world, this would work smoothly. But in the real world, contracts are rarely transparent. Small landholders do not have access to the legal teams that corporations do. Contract disputes like the ones Suryadi told us about are far too common. So not only is palm oil replacing the rainforest, but the new plantations aren't fairly spreading the wealth. Someone needs to mediate these contracts so that they're fair. One would think the government should step in, but sometimes they end up being part of the problem instead. Let's let Yoko Ravif of Greenpeace Southeast Asia explain.
Corruption and nepotism works its part, because most of these concessions are given by the local regency or probably also the governor of the area. So they are the ones who gave that concessions.
If palm oil is to be grown fairly, the government has to regulate the industry effectively. They need to stamp out corruption and make sure land is assigned fairly. This should lessen land disputes. While small landowners may get the short end of the stick, the people that suffer the most are the indigenous people. They depend the most on the rainforest for their daily lives. When it's cut down to make room for palm oil plantations, they lose their way of life. They've responded with protests, which have sometimes turned violent. Authorities often answer with repression, which just makes things worse. It perpetuates a cycle of hatred, working against finding a fair solution. But it's important to note that the people of Borneo do care about the rainforest, even if some are cutting it down to make a living. Eric Maillard is the founder of Borneo Futures, which practices conservation science. In a survey he conducted, 67% of villagers said that they valued the rainforest very highly. The rainforest provides them with needed food, medicine, and has high spiritual value. Small landowners were also more likely to have a positive view of the rainforest. So the people of Borneo do care about their beautiful environment. This makes finding a solution much more important. If people from Borneo didn't care, there wouldn't be much hope. There's not really anything we can do from this far away. But they do care, and there is hope. Profit and environmental conservation usually don't go well together. One solution is to try to find a balance that works well enough for both sides. To do this, sustainability certification has been introduced on some plantations.
Palm oil can be produced sustainably without clearing valuable forests and habitats. In fact, it's already starting to happen. The Round Table for Sustainable Palm Oil certifies companies and smallholders working towards producing palm oil in a way that doesn't harm people or the environment. PT Musim Mas was the first Indonesian company to achieve RSPO certification. It also ensures that its affiliated smallholders are RSPO certified.
That was a report from the World Wildlife Fund, which set up the RSPO. So there are some people working exactly on this issue. Let's hear more from Ricky Netterstrom, a member of the Roundtable, about the goals of her organization.
Well, there's no doubt that there are conflicts between local communities, palm oil companies. The Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil was set up exactly to try and find solutions between these groups, various NGOs such as WWF and Oxfam, and members of the industry to try and find solutions to these better ways of addressing conflicts before they appear, not just trying to resolve them afterwards.
But what do these solutions really look like? Well, some studies have suggested that Indonesia doesn't need to cut down any more rainforest. If they can increase the productivity of the lands that have already been cleared, one study predicts they can meet a large chunk of world needs. Potential yields on palm oil plantations are much higher than current yields. Overall, this is no doubt a complicated issue. The players include indigenous people, governments, small landholders, large corporations, and conservation NGOs. Rural farmers could use the palm oil money, but they're often hurt by bad contracts with larger companies. If palm oil is to be grown fairly, the government has to regulate the industry effectively. They need to stamp out corruption and make sure land is assigned fairly. If this happens, deforestation can be lessened or even stopped in Borneo. Palm oil is not the enemy, and it's not going away. Through biofuel, it can help the world fight climate change. But deforestation in Borneo needs to stop. As long as palm oil is here to stay, the people and players involved must make sure that it's working as best it can for everyone. For Colgate University, I'm Teddy Campbell.